Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Biology. The topic is related to animal tissues. Animal tissues. Right. So there are different types of tissues in animals, and these tissues are four types mainly. How there are four types of tissues are there in plants, like that there are four types of tissues in animals. First one, epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue. Next one, connective tissue. Epithelial tissue, connective tissue. Third one, muscular tissue. Muscular tissue. And fourth one, nervous tissue. Nervous tissue. These are the four types of tissues in animals. So these epithelial tissues are again divided into squamous epithelial tissue, stratified squamous epithelial tissue, stratified squamous epithelial tissue, cuboidal epithelial tissue, glandular epithelium, columnar epithelial tissue, modified epithelial tissue. These are the types in epithelial tissue. Next, connective tissue. Connective tissues are also various types. Areolar tissue, adipose tissue, bone, cartilage, ligament, tendon, blood. All these are connective tissues. And muscular tissue, striated muscle, unstriated muscle, and cardiac muscle. And here we are going to discuss about the nerve cell in nervous tissue. These are the various types of animal tissues. Okay, epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, nervous tissue, and these are the types of the respective tissues, and we will discuss about each and every connective tissue. First one is the epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue. The tissue that forms lining on internal and external organs of the body. Is called epithelial tissue. The tissue that forms as lining on internal and external organs, it is called epithelial tissue. And this epithelial tissue, the first one is the squamous epithelium. This epithelium is present as a lining of lungs and lining of alveoli, blood vessel, esophagus. Okay, like this, in various types of internal organs, this epithelial tissue is present as a lining. And if we study the structure of this epithelial tissue, it looks like this. right? So this is the epithelial tissue. These are the epithelial tissue cells, and this is the cytoplasm, and this is the basement membrane. This is called basement membrane. Okay, so this is the squamous epithelium, which is present as the lining of alveoli, lining of esophagus, lining of blood vessel. Okay, right. So this is about the squamous epithelial tissue. Squamous epithelial tissue. Next one, the epithelial tissue that is present as in the form of layers. The tissue that forms in the form of layers is called stratified squamous epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue that is present in the form of layers. The epithelial tissue that is present in the form of layers is stratified squamous epithelial tissue. Stratified squamous epithelial tissue. So this is present in our skin. So whatever the surface we are seeing here, so whatever the surface is there, it is present in the form of layers. Which epithelial tissue is stratified squamous epithelial tissue? Next one, cuboidal epithelial tissue. Cuboidal epithelial tissue. Cuboidal epithelial tissue is present in lining of kidney tubules. Lining of kidney tubules. Which epithelial tissue is present? Cuboidal epithelium. And also it gives support to salivary glands. And the arrangement of cells in cuboidal epithelium looks like this. So the arrangement of cells in cuboidal epithelium, so which is forming as a lining of kidney tubule and as a support to salivary gland. Next one, glandular epithelium. What is glandular epithelium is sometimes the epithelial tissue fold inwards, means it fold inwards towards the body, folds inwards. Sometimes the epithelial tissue folds inwards and forms multicellular gland. Okay, it is called glandular epithelium. Whatever the epithelial tissue that fold inwards and forms a multicellular gland, it is called glandular epithelium. Right. Next, fifth one, columnar epithelial tissue. Columnar epithelium. Actually, epi means outer. Thelium means tissue. So the tissue that forms as lining in internal organs and external organs, that is called epithelial tissue. This columnar epithelium is present where absorption and secretion occurs. Where absorption and secretion occurs, there columnar epithelium is present. For example, villi of small intestine. Okay, so the villi, which are thousands of finger-like projections present in small intestine, they absorb food and give to blood. So where absorption and secretion occurs, there which type of epithelial tissue is present means columnar epithelial tissue is present, and its arrangement is like this. And the arrangement of cells is like this. This is the arrangement of cells in columnar epithelial tissue. Columnar epithelial tissue. Okay, next, last one, sixth one, modified epithelial tissue. Modified epithelial tissue. So for example, whatever the scales of birds, scales of fishes and frogs, scales of fishes and frogs, and whatever the scales, feathers of birds, they are comes under modified epithelial tissue. Modified epithelial tissue. Okay, so scales of fishes, next snakes, and feathers of birds, they comes under modified epithelial tissue. Okay, so these are the types of epithelial tissue: squamous epithelial tissue, next stratified squamous epithelial tissue, cuboidal epithelial tissue, next glandular epithelial tissue, columnar epithelial tissue, and finally modified epithelial tissue. Next one, connective tissue. Connective tissue. So in connective tissue, the first tissue is the areolar tissue. Before that, we will write the definition here. Connective tissue. The tissues that join other organs, the tissue that joins other organs is connective tissue. Okay, the tissues that joins with other organs is connective tissue. So first one is the areolar tissue. Areolar tissue. And this is the areolar tissue diagram. Right, this is the, there are fibers in the structure. These are the fibers, and here is the cytoplasm in the cells. Cytoplasm is present. Here is a cell. Here is a cell called mast cell. Mast cell. And the areolar tissue is made up of cells called fibroblasts. Areolar tissue is made up of cells called fibroblasts. And there are two types of fibers are present, and there is a phagocyte also. There is a phagocyte. A structure is present called phagocyte and mast cell. And these are white fibers, and there are also yellow elastic fibers. Yellow fibers are present, which are made up of collagen substance, and the cells of areolar tissue are called fibroblasts. What is the function of areolar tissue is, areolar tissue holds the organs tightly in position without any displacement. So for example, whatever the movements we are doing, still the body parts in our body are fixed at particular place only. It is because of areolar tissue. Okay, the body parts in our body are fixed at particular position and they are not doing any displacement. It is because of areolar tissue, because these areolar tissues makes the body parts to hold in position tightly. Okay, this is about the areolar tissue. And the next tissue is the adipose tissue. Second one is the adipose tissue. This is also called fat storing tissue. Adipose tissue is also called fat storing tissue. Fat storing tissue is nothing but adipose tissue. So the cells are like this. In the adipose tissue, The cells are like this, and the cells of adipose tissue are called adipocytes. The cells of adipose tissue are called adipocytes. So next here, whatever the cells are there, in between the cells fat is stored or cholesterol is stored like this. Cholesterol is stored between the cells. So the cells of adipose tissue are called adipocytes, and in between these cells, these are present below the skin. These are present below the skin layer, and they are mainly storing the fat. They are mainly storing the fat, and these fat storing cells are called adipocytes. Okay, next one, next tissue, bone. Third one is the bone tissue. So generally all the vertebrates body is made up of bone only. All the vertebrates body is made up of bone, and this is the structure of osteocyte, means osteon, bone cell diagram. So these are the small branches which are present in surrounding Haversian canal. There is a canal at the center, it is called Haversian canal. So these structures we observe when we take in a small amount of bone marrow from bones and observed under microscope. We observe this type of structure. We observe this type of structure when we observe under microscope. A small substance taken and observed under microscope from bone marrow, we will see these structures. So whatever the branches like structures erases, these are called canaliculi. This each one is called osteon, and the bone cells are called osteocytes, and this canal is called Haversian canal. Next, so bone is made up of calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate. Bone is made up of calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate, and the bone cells are called osteocytes. All the vertebrates body is made up of bone only. All the vertebrates body is made up of bone only except shark. Why? Because in shark is made up of cartilage, another type of connective tissue. Okay, so this bone forms a framework. And as a support to our body. Okay, so this is about the bone tissue. And next, fourth one, cartilage. Cartilage is a connective tissue which is hard but not as hard as bone. So cartilage is also hard but not as hard as bone. Generally shark's body is made up of cartilage only. And this cartilage is also present between ribs, trachea, okay, and also in wrist. Okay, like this in different areas cartilage is present. Next, fifth one, ligament. Ligament is a type of connective tissue which is present at joints where two bones are connected. Okay, bone to bone connection is because of ligament. Ligament helps in connecting one bone with another bone. That is the function of ligament, and this is made up of fibers called yellow elastic fibers. This contains yellow elastic fibers that is made up of a substance called collagen. It is made up of yellow elastic fibers which is made up of collagen. Okay, so where joints are present and these two bones are attached at joints because of ligament. Next, sixth one, tendon. So here we have to remember carefully, where two bones are joined, there the tissue present is ligament. So muscle is attached to bone, right? Why? Because we cannot imagine our body without bone. At the same time, we cannot imagine our body without muscle. So where muscle is attached to bone, by the help of connective tissue called tendon. It also contains fibers which are yellow elastic fibers which are made up of collagen substance. So this is about the first one, areolar tissue, which helps the organs to be in fixed position tightly without any displacement. And second one is the adipose tissue. The cells of adipose tissue are called adipocytes, whereas the cells of areolar tissue are called fibroblasts, and adipose tissue is also called fat storing tissue, and third one is the bone, which is a main structural framework in vertebrates, and fourth one is the cartilage, which is hard but not as hard as bone. And of course here ear is also made up of cartilage, tip of nose is made up of cartilage, ribs, trachea, wrist, all these are. And ligament is where two bones are joined, their ligament is present. Where muscle is attached to bone, their tendon is present. Okay, so we will discuss about another topic in the next class.